Hello and welcome to State of the Economy. Today we have with us Professor Pinaki Chakraborty, who was Economic Advisor to the 14th Finance Commission. He's a professor at the NIPFP, and as advisor to the 14th Finance Commission, he participated in this seminal recommendation which was made by the 14th Finance Commission to give states roughly 1,90,000 crore more of tax devolution for them to use it directly in their own developed programs. And the 14th Finance Commission also was, while being accepted by the government, it is seen as a big boost to fiscal federalism in India, probably the only one which has so pronouncedly recommended fiscal federalism friendly provisions. So to discuss that, we have with us Professor Pinaki Chakraborty. Welcome to our show, Professor. Now, could you just tell our viewers very simply what is the big change in the way the center is sharing its tax collection or revenues with the states, because the 14th Finance Commission gives nearly 1,90,000 crore extra to the states from now on. So please tell us.
Yeah, let me first explain what is shared with the states.
Okay.
If we look at the Constitution, the shareable revenues of the central government to the states consist of the tax revenue, net of cess surcharge, and also they deduct the cost of collection.
Yeah.
So when you are talking about 42% of the revenue has been devolved to the states as tax devolution, what we are actually talking about is the divisible pool, which consists of the tax revenue, net of cess surcharge, and cost of collection.
Okay.
So that portion of the total revenue of the central government is taken, and from there 42% is devolved to the states. Now this was as per the recommendation of the 13th Finance Commission, 32%. Now there has been a 10 percentage point step up, so it is now 42%.
It's a 10% increase. 10
percentage point increase.
And this is the highest increase
yes,
in recent decades?
Yes, it's the highest increase, I think, in the history of Finance Commission.
Okay.
It's a significant step up, but the fundamental issue
just to give us an idea, in the previous finance commissions, it happens every 5 years, right?
Right.
In the previous, say, 3 or 4 finance commissions, the increase would have been less than 3%, roughly?
No, much less, because if we look at the 13th Finance Commission, it increased from 30.5 to 32%. That means 1.5 percentage point increase. And in case of 12th Finance Commission, it increased from 29% to 30.5%, another 1.5 percentage point increase.
So that percentage was of the total tax
revenue net of cess surcharge and cost of collection
was shared with the states.
It was shared with the states.
So this is the first time that a 10%
increase, but it has to be seen in the larger context of center-state fiscal relations.
Yeah.
Now, if we look at the total money that goes to the states, tax devolution is one component, and there are large grants, and we know about grants given for flagship programs, grants given for plan, grant given for normal center
the central plan schemes,
various plan schemes. So if we take all the plan grants and the grants given by the Finance Commission and the tax devolution together, it constituted around 62 to 65% of the divisible pool.
Yeah. Okay.
That means the situation, if we look pre-14th Finance Commission period, say last 2 Finance Commission, that means 12th and 13th, the central government on an average was devolving around 62 to 65% of the divisible pool to the states.
65% of the total taxes.
Total taxes.
To the states.
To the states.
Either through the Finance Commission route or through the central plan scheme.
So out of that, if you take the Finance Commission route, it was devolving around 32% tax devolution and other minor grants, which was around 5 to 6% of the tax devolution, of the divisible pool, sorry. So you see around 32 plus 5, so around 37 to 38% of the divisible pool was through the Finance Commission route. Rest was through the Planning Commission, various plan grants and centrally sponsored.
So you're saying the total remains at 65?
Total remains around that area only, above 60%. So what has happened is that those grants, which is outside the Finance Commission's recommendations, if we look at the past Finance Commissions, were all central grants and mostly conditional. So in that context, if we put this recommendation of the 14th Finance Commission, you will see the untied portion, the fiscal flexibility, fiscal autonomy at the state level has significantly increased post 14th Finance Commission's recommendations compared to the earlier period.
So basically what you're saying is roughly about 2 lakh crores or thereabouts,
yes,
which possibly was earlier going through the central plan route, where planning commission would assess whether the states, what kind of schemes the state should spend on, whether it's Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan or National Rural Health Mission, etc., or the ICDS, Women and Child Welfare Scheme. Now, the center is saying that some of these funds may go to the states directly through the Finance Commission route and let them decide how they want to spend it in their best interest. Is that my understanding correct?
Yeah, the 42% devolution, see, resources are not unlimited. So resources are limited.
Exactly, that's what you're saying. The resources are limited, but the route through which they're going is now...
There has been a structural shift in the transfers away from condition to unconditional transfers. Now, how that adjustment has been done, that is explained in the budget. So that's why there has been a cut and which all schemes have been discontinued. Those details are there in the budget. But the fact of the matter is, now that states have more untied resources, states would be able to do their own program according to their needs and preferences. That's the idea. So states have become more fiscally autonomous. That is one thing. Second point that I wanted to flag here is we are not discussing one important aspect of the Finance Commission's departure from the past Finance Commissions. Earlier Finance Commission used to talk about only non-planned revenue expenditure, because planned revenue expenditure was the responsibility of the Planning Commission. Now, in the 14th Finance Commission's TOR, there was no planned, non-planned distinction. So 14th Finance Commission implicitly was asked to look into the overall revenue expenditure of the states. So when we talk about the overall revenue expenditure of the states, that means we have to assess the revenue expenditure needs of the states for the next 5 years. So in that context, if we look at this 42% devolution, this would certainly cover a certain part of the plan expenditure. Also, the point that you raised, which all program has gone in. So that is the to answer to that question. I would like to mention that the 14th Finance Commission has taken into account the planned revenue expenditure of the states as well as the non-planned revenue expenditure, which are largely committed expenditures, say it interest payment, pension, salary.
To explain this in simple terms, tell me, the money that were going to the states through the planning commission route, now there's no planning commission, right? Through the central plan route, centrally sponsored schemes, as we know, they were tied to certain schemes, like whether it's Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan or whether National Rural Health Mission or some other schemes. Now they are going directly to the states, and the states have the freedom to design their own programs. Now, how much of the money has shifted in this manner? About 2 lakh crores?
Yeah, on the tax devolution, but that doesn't mean there has been a concomitant 2 lakh crore reduction in the expenditure. So that one has to see that one-to-one mapping. But that's not very important at the moment.
But what the budget documents do show
what are
a reduction in the centrally sponsored schemes.
Like
Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, there's a reduction. Women and Child Welfare Program, there's a reduction. So is one to assume that the states will now replicate or spend on those kind of schemes, but do their own designing?
See, there are three issues. As we have talked about the planned program being discontinued because of the higher tax devolution, we have to remember three things. First is, if we talk about certain big centrally sponsored scheme like say Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, these schemes, if we look at historically, the states are the biggest spender, the major spender of the elementary education. 80% of the elementary education spending, despite Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, is at the state level.
So this was just a top-up.
So you are only doing a top-up. So that top-up, a certain reduction in that top-up because of the enhanced tax devolution, I think is a good thing. Because you get out of the country.
No, I'm not making a value judgment. I'm merely asking whether when the states get that money, will they spend it on education or they may spend it on something else?
That they will decide. That certainly they will decide according to the state priorities. That's the idea of an enhanced tax devolution. But these reductions the reduction has to take place somewhere, because otherwise you cannot accommodate this large increase in the tax devolution. So they have done in some of the big centrally sponsored schemes.
Okay.
They have also discontinued with one of the big transfer mechanism, that is a normal central assistance, around 28,000 crores. That has also been discontinued. So, so idea is that normal central assistance, which used to go as the Gadgil formula grant to the state as a block grant, will also be financed by the enhanced tax devolution. That's the same is the case with NRHA, because the biggest spender on health is also the states. So you are only doing a top up, and now that the states have larger fiscal space and there is a central support, it's not that it has been discontinued. I don't think there will be a significant reduction on states who will go ahead and start spending on something which is not acceptable. So that's not the idea. So given that overall kitty remains more or less the same as percentage of the divisible pool, it is only a structural shift that has happened from the tied to the untied.
That means the states will now, there's huge responsibility on their shoulders, because now they have the money and they'll be answerable and accountable for how they use the funds, right? So
that is true, but the fact is, if we look at the constitutional provisions of spending, so in the form of union list, state list, and concurrent list, I think in the last 15-20 years, central government was spending a lot more on the concurrent list and a lot more on the state list, because there has been central
a lot more on the concurrent list than the state list.
No, both on concurrent list and in the state list.
Okay.
But the central expenditure responsibility as per constitution is well defined.
Well defined.
And it is important for greater public service delivery outcome, and if the center gets its priorities right and state gets their priorities right, I think we'll have a better outcome. Okay. And through this higher tax devolution, probably I think center as well as the states are getting their public expenditure decision capabilities right.
Right. Okay. So Professor Pinaki Chakraborty, so you were trying to explain how a huge chunk of money which the center was delivering to the states through schemes designed by the Planning Commission, or assessed by the Planning Commission at least, like Narega, Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, or National Rural Health Mission. Now, a lot of that money, roughly 2 lakh crores, now will go directly to the states, and they will be allowed to design their program. Now, what will happen? Now, we have to assume that in the spirit of fiscal federalism, that the states know what is in their best interest, right? Now, what happens when some of these funds are not spent properly, and state assembly elections, we have UP elections in 2 years, you have West Bengal elections, and if they start spending, say, on laptops for students, what is described as populist expenditure, although I do not completely agree with this notion of populist, because populist is a reality that we all have to live with. So then what happens to programs in the area of health, education, etc., if some of those monies get diverted to so-called populist expenditures?
Well, I think to answer the first part of your question, where you are talking about there will be a transfer of funds from big centrally sponsored scheme to tax devolution, so there will be a cut. I would like to explain the total award of the Finance Commission. I think that is very important. So 42% is the tax devolution.
I must also just I must clarify here that I'm not suggesting that only states do indulge in populist spending and center does. The center also does a lot of populist spending. So
yeah,
I'm just trying to imagine a future situation.
So if we, as I explained in the beginning, that the central government transfer around 62 to 65% of the divisible pool to the states.
That remains the same.
And if that remains the same, in that case, center can always increase it. That's why I'm saying if that remains the same. So in that case, around 48% is devolved to the Finance Commission, because Finance Commission has given local body grants, which is roughly 3 lakh crore. Then it has given grant for disaster relief. It has also given a revenue deficit grant of 1,94,000 crore. So taken all these together, it's around 48% of the divisible
So there's a
pool.
full 10% increase, 38% to 48%.
Yeah, if we take the 13 Finance Commission's tax
Yeah.
devolution and other grants.
Of the total taxes.
So central government is still left with around 15% of the divisible pool to do its big programs that it was doing.
Okay.
So within that, centre's fiscal flexibility still remains for national level programs, which has got, it's not the Finance Commission is saying that all centrally sponsored schemes are bad. But definitely there is an issue of having too many central sponsor schemes which ties up the state resources because state has to make matching contributions.
Center is still left with about 35%, no? If 65 is the total.
No, I'm talking about what you are transferring to the states.
Okay, what
so if you are transferring 65% and 48% is recommended by the Finance Commission, how to go, devolve, then you are still left with around 15% of the divisible pool to do your own program. So how center works that out in the next 5 years, that one has to see.
Okay.
Whether it will increase the share of the transfer in the total divisible pool, or within this 15% it is going to do something with the Niti Aayog for a big centrally sponsored national level program on education and health.
It has scope to do that.
It has definitely scope to do things which it thinks is nationally important. That part has to be emphasized. That is the first part. So that's the aggregate picture of the transfers that goes from the center to the state.
It's good you clarify this because there's a feeling that the center's room to do much needed centrally sponsored schemes would be vastly reduced. But that's not true. That may not be true.
That is, center's discretion has definitely reduced if center doesn't increase it.
But center can sit with the states and design programs where they can work together.
They can work together, and for that there is a space of around 15 to 16% of the divisible pool left by the Finance Commission. So, and center's fiscal space for its own program actually hasn't been reduced. So if you have not increased the overall transfer. So that is the first part. Second part is, I think we have to take a larger view. Now, if we look at the big centrally sponsored schemes which are called flagship, all these schemes have once upon a time originated in the states, whether it is midday meal scheme in Tamil Nadu or employment guarantee in Maharashtra, Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan in Kerala. So you are having a pan-India program. So I think
or
it is
2 rupee rise by NTR in Andhra Pradesh.
Yes. So the point here is that we need to trust the state, and things have changed. I think economy has to grow at the state level. Economy cannot grow at the...
It's a bit like saying the father needs to trust the son.
Yes, father needs to trust the son. And that can only be done with larger untied resources. And also the complexity of a federal country like India is very different than a large federal homogeneous countries in the world. So in such a situation, unless you trust the state, federalism will be at danger. So I think it is very important to look at the 14th Finance Commission's recommendations from that perspective. There is no reason why the center or the people in Leni should not trust the test.
I completely take your point that there has to be trust. Now, post-trust, can we have a mechanism where the center and states together audit the outcome of such spending? I mean, I'm not saying this need not be a top-down mechanism where the center tries to audit how the state is spending, but the states and the center both have equal rights to look at each other's expenditure. Maybe some common body, or could it be the interstate council or what? I mean, is there a... Because audit has... outcome of the spending has to be a formal exercise, no? To assess the outcome.
No, outcome of government expenditure, whether you should do an audit of the money that it has been money spent, or you do an audit of outcome, are two different issues. Now,
no, I'm saying both.
So audit of money, there is CAG does audit and all that.
But you know, I've noticed one thing. CAG, given its resources, etc. In fact, in a recent interview, the former CAG, Vinod Rai, said that he, in the context of coal allocation, he did not have time to audit the way states allocated coal, you know, in joint ventures to private sector. He says he could only do center. So what I have observed is that CAG gets focused on central schemes far more than the states. Now, that apart, that's expenditure auditing. But can there be an outcome auditing framework where the center and states together see the outcomes of schemes which they work on, common schemes like education, health, etc. You know?
See, education, if we look at as I said, large spending is at the state level from the very beginning. Now, these outcome surveys are being done because Ministry of HRD does it, states, they themselves do,
some NGOs
NGOs do it. So that's the difference. But I don't know about the formal procedure. I don't think that because of the enhanced vertical devolution, now center would say that how you want to spend. Then the question of I want to see what is the outcome of the untied money that I have given to. Then the purpose is lost because because then it again becomes a kind of a conditional grants at the end of the time period. So I don't think that center would also be likely to do. But the delivery mechanism has to improve as time goes, and that is independent of the fact whether there is a tied grant or untied grant. Public money, the way it is spent, one has to be accountable. So that's a different issue. And in that case, if you look at there has been a focus on outcome budgeting. There has been a lot of talk about quality of educational spending. There are outcome-based surveys done by various NGOs. And at the same time, government also is doing a lot of outcome surveys. Now, there are two issues. I think outcome issues have to be emphasized. I'm not saying that it's not very, I'm not talking about profligate public spending, but at the same time, the kind of outcome that we are talking about are also something which has to be taken a bit cautiously, because the fact is, if we talk about elementary education, government schools don't provide desired outcome. What are the alternatives? The alternative is again the government. So it is, because the private sector will not go and open a school in a remote village in the remotest part of the country. So in such a situation, I think the delivery mechanism has to improve, and that consciousness and that accountability has to come within the government itself, and that will come through public pressure and public action. So that part is very different, and that will happen with whether there is a finance commission recommendations or there is more money spent on a particular subject. So that is.
Can you tell us some other recommendation that you've made which take into account present day realities of the center-state relations and the way states are evolving?
It's a very important question. I think one very important one very important mechanism that was used by the Finance Commission for horizontal distribution of taxes, this 42%, was completely ignored. Because of the 42% number. The point is the Finance Commission has used...
So people are only focusing on the vertical. People are not looking at how they are getting distributed among states.
Not at all. Not at all. Now, one of the indicators, among the many indicators like population area, demographic change, and the equity like income distance we have used and given for 50% weightage. One of the major innovations done by this 14th Finance Commission is the use of forest cover. So forest cover actually is a huge fiscal disability of a state, because if there is a forest, you cannot have an alternative economy.
And in the context of climate change, you can't just remove forest to exploit resources.
So it's a huge fiscal disability of a state which has got a large forest cover.
So on that they get a certain special grant, is it?
So forest cover has been given a weightage of 7.5%. So this is taking care of the fiscal disability arising due to forest. Also, in a way, though it is not explicitly mentioned anywhere in the report, in a way recognizes the fact that climate change is a major issue. And environment and climate change was one of the TORs of the 14th Finance Commission. It was there for the 13th also. 13th Finance Commission had given specific purpose grant. And in the case of 14th Finance Commission, they have directly introduced it in the devolution formula. In the process, this is actually giving a signal that in a change circumstances where climate change is becoming a major issue, the preserving forest and compensating the states for that comes in a big way.
That's a good thing. Now, one last question. When you talk about decentralization, in this debate, we only talk about center and states. What about the third tier, panchayats? Is there anything for the panchayats?
Yes, if we look at the panchayats, and let me go slightly to the history. This is the 10th Finance Commission, which did not have a TOR on the panchayat, but the 73rd and 74th constitutional amendment was done. It allocated certain grant. A very small amount of grant was allocated. Then subsequently 11th, 12th and 13th significantly stepped up these grants, both for the urban local bodies as well as the rural local bodies.
This one?
And in the 13th Finance Commission, it was 89,000 crore. And in this Finance Commission, this grant has been stepped up to almost close to 3 lakh crores.
So there's a big jump for the third tier also.
Yes. So there has been a significant step up. It takes care of the issue that the states have raised, the local bodies have raised, because the Finance Commission made the local bodies, they have raised.
More than 200% step up.
Yes, they have asked for more untied funds, because at the local level, money doesn't have a character. It's all untied when it goes. And we don't want the states, the local government to do agency function. So it is very important that they have untied resources to do their own program. The logic of center-state relations should also get extended up to the local bodies. So there is a huge untied resources that are going to the states. It's a very simple formula of population and area. So the local bodies would also have large untied resources.
So basically you're saying the same logic has been followed up there also.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Professor Pinaki Chakraborty, for clarifying some of the issues relating to the 14th Finance Commission to us.